It's Tuesday night, and you know what that means. It's a special edition of Real Talk right here on the Jersey First Television Network. And certainly I am the generational talent in Garden State media because, ladies and gentlemen, my level of honesty now more than ever is truly necessary because, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, the establishment media here in New Jersey continues to lie to you every single day. But guess who won't? That's right. It's me, Fernando, Uribe. Once again, hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's not just a long weekend, but it's important to remember those that have fallen for this country, going back to the American Revolution, the Civil War, to World War I, World War II, Korean War, World War II, and obviously all of the occupations we saw in the Middle East over the last 20 years, to all the brave men and women that we have lost, who have served our country. That's why we take a moment to remember all of you this past weekend. So again, hopefully you took a moment to do that and enjoyed it with your friends and family. Again, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so right now on Facebook Live via StreamYard, also on the Jersey First Television Network via YouTube, and of course on all of our social media platforms, whether it be Instagram, X, LinkedIn, you name it, folks, Twitch. I'm glad you're tuning in here on this, the 27th of May, as we're wrapping up my favorite month, folks. That's right, the month of May here on Jersey First TV. Folks, if you haven't done so already, trust me, it just takes 5 seconds. Like, comment, and share tonight's episode. And of course, make sure you like us and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Like us on Facebook, of course. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and X. And if you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button for the Jersey First YouTube page, and you'll be automatically notified of all the great content we bring you every single week here on Jersey First TV. And of course, whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First. And whether you're walking the dog, maybe going for that morning run, hey, maybe doing food shopping, maybe you're just getting some sun on the patio or on the deck. Trust me, I'm sure you have your smartphone or your tablet with you. Check out Jersey First when you do. Folks, again, I can't say enough really what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media. That's right, folks. It is Jersey First TV. Don't forget the brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, hosted by my outstanding tag team partner, the amazing Elizabeth Nader. And brand new episodes of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe premiere every Monday night. Check your local listings, of course, for start times. And of course, nobody does it better than Jersey First TV. Folks, you want to stick around for final thoughts? I have a lot to say about the Lollipop Guild here in Hudson County. And you're probably wondering, who is that? Well, yes, folks. It's the usual malcontents, dimwits, and derelicts in Hudson County, politics or activism. Take your pick, folks. Yes, you have obviously illiterates like Ernie Rivera-Batiz. Let's be honest. I mean, the only A's this dimwit ever saw in his report card growing up were in his name. I mean, did he really see them anywhere else? I highly doubt that. Well, of course, you have, retired malcontents like Joe Blaitler, who, let's be honest, folks. I mean, I have ex-girlfriends who don't bitch and moan as much as Joe Blaitler, who somehow, at the tender age of whatever he is, I don't know, his late 80s, living on a very nice pension, with 2 homes, but still finds a way to run a ridiculous Facebook page online and just take ad hominem attacks at people on random days. So, take your pick. I'll have more to say about them. And of course, folks, Leonard Filipowski, who, yes, there's something called ELEC. And ELEC reports are a very interesting thing because when you read through these PDFs, you get to know when people are being disingenuous. And let's be honest, the king of being disingenuous always is Leonard Filipowski. But of course, you also have the people that enable bad campaigns, like Tony Hector and Frank Alonso. Take your pick, whether Frank Alonso's awake at this hour, he probably isn't, or Tony Hector just giving money away to people and somehow, so-called journalists forgetting to maybe tell us about it. I don't know. Or, the usual illiterates that, enable these horrible campaigns or these horrible activists who, let's be honest, folks, you have grown men, otherwise, look like childish marks here, who cry about poverty and everything else with a sob story. Take your pick, folks, on what day of the week is. If the day ends with a Y, trust me, you're hearing sob stories from dimwits and illiterates like Jose Garrido Jr. But don't worry, we'll delve into that during final thoughts. You don't want to miss that. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, speaking about dimwits, we'll talk about Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala. When he's not being sued by the Department of Justice, he's running Hoboken into the ground. And somehow he thinks he's a good candidate for the state assembly. I'll tell you why that's a horrible choice coming up 2 weeks from tonight on June the 10th. All that and much more, folks, during Final Thoughts. You want to stick around for that. Yes, folks, it's election season, and I know we just came out of a pretty tribal election cycle in 2024, but it doesn't rest in 2025. Obviously, we have a very hotly contested gubernatorial race. We have all 80 state assembly seats up for grabs later on this November. And of course, also, we have a lot of important municipal races. Yes, here in Hudson County, for example. I know everyone's talking about Hoboken and Jersey City. But ladies and gentlemen, I think we tend to forget that there are other towns here in Hudson County. And some interesting mayoral races, obviously, are in west of us in Kearney, New Jersey. But right smack in the middle of Hudson County, yeah, it's the township of Guttenberg, and they have a mayoral race as well. Obviously, they have a primary coming up 2 weeks from tonight, with the general election coming up on on November the 4th. So obviously a lot to talk about during this election cycle. And folks, again, it's important to, talk to, candidates when they're running for office. And certainly here on this program, it's important to talk to incumbents on the show. And why not talk to one of our incumbent mayors here in Hudson County? We're going to get him on in just a moment. I'm just waiting for him to come on here in the studio screen here. Just bear with us, folks. As you can see there, obviously, the Honorable Mayor of Guttenberg, Wayne Zitt, will join us in a moment. Just trying to get through some technical difficulties here. Hopefully, we'll get him on. Waiting for him to come on here on the screen. Hopefully, wait until I see him. Let's see if he is on board here. Well, folks, again, here we go. All right, I do see him here. And folks, again, as I mentioned before, mayoral races matter. All local politics is all local, as they say. I want to talk about the most local of politics, and that is in the township of Guttenberg. And their mayor, the Honorable Wayne Zitt, joins us right now live on Real Talk. Mayor, how are you? Welcome to Real Talk.
Good, bud. Thank you for having me. How's everything going?
Good, man. And by the way, folks, he's not just the mayor of Guttenberg. He's also a devoted member of Cowboys Nation. And we'll talk a little Cowboys football since 100 days from today is the start of the NFL season. I don't know about you, Mayor, but I'm pretty optimistic about our Cowboys. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But how are you, man? How was your Memorial Day weekend?
All as well. Was down ashore for a little bit. Came back, obviously, tonight, campaigning again. Walking and knocking, getting on doors to get people's thoughts, and obviously looking for support.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. And folks, again, 2 weeks from tonight, obviously, is primary day. And we'll talk a little bit more about why primary day is so fickle this year, around more than ever in Hudson County. But obviously, we'll focus on your race here. And for everybody at home that isn't familiar with the township of Guttenberg, since it is a statewide program, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, it is right now the most densely populated, maybe one of the most densely populated municipalities in the world. Mayor, obviously, latest stats tell us with 57,116 inhabitants per square mile. It's only 4 blocks wide, north to south. Guttenberg has been ranked on numerous occasions as the 9th smallest municipality in the state, or the state's 7th smallest municipality, based on data that's been accrued by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. Well, Mayor, it kind of begs the question. A lot of people say, well, it's only 2 blocks long. I mean, how difficult must it be to be a mayor? But it's never easy being the mayor of any municipality. Is that fair to say?
I agree, because you got to realize you're not going to make everybody happy. But we're very fortunate. We have a good team. We've done a lot in the 8 years, and we're proud of what we've done, and we want to continue to build off it.
So when we talk about building off the successes, obviously you've been here for a couple of terms, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct, the second term.
Exactly. So, and coming up on June 10th, even though it's, for lack of a better word, I mean, there's a lot of partisanship in the assembly and gubernatorial races, obviously, for primary day. But, there's a primary in the township of Guttenberg. You are running unopposed. We'll see if that remains the case coming up on November the 4th, later on this year when it is the general election. But, it's easy to sort of get lost in this election cycle, Mayor, where, especially here in Hudson County, people are talking about Jersey City. Obviously, they're going to be electing a new mayor. In Hoboken, they'll also be electing a new mayor, possibly in Kearney. But, again, you're one of the incumbents, that actually you're the only incumbent running in a municipal race in Hudson County. So you certainly don't want to take things for granted. But what are some of the things you want to brag about when it comes to your record as the chief executive in the township of Guttenberg?
We definitely evolved in a sense when it comes down to senior services, medical transport. We do have some redevelopment, probably one of the last towns in North Hudson to have some. But, doing it responsibly, going not into these big buildings and more moderate and mid-rise buildings, but, mostly one bedrooms, bring some kids out of overcrowded school, which also help bring down property taxes. But expanding services, the community engagement, we need to get a little bit more on top of, getting voter turnout. That's, what really drives numbers. And if you need funding and stuff like that to grab people's attention. So, I mean, this is a big thing. We might be uncontested right here, but, we want to get a high voter turnout so we could turn some heads.
I'm glad you mentioned that about voter turnout because at the end of the day, people might think, well, it's a primary. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes turnout isn't really overwhelming on primary day. Again, I mean, I think that's a big narrative that is dominating not just the gubernatorial primaries for both the Republican and Democrat parties collectively, but obviously for the assembly seats. But even in municipal races, and people might think, well, Guttenberg. I mean, really, if you get 100 people to vote, all right, who cares? But to your point, yeah, I mean, that's a big deal when it comes to going to Trenton and saying, hey, listen, there are needs to be addressed for our residents. We're a small town. Obviously, no one's saying we're, going to be as comparable as municipalities nearby like Weehawken, Union City, or, statewide like Fairview, Cliffside Park, Leonia, for example. But at the end of the day, I think you said it perfectly. Turnout drives a narrative that people are engaged in the community. As you've been going door to door and knocking, talking to people, having town events, having town halls per se. What's been the feedback about your record?
Well, it's like you said, getting out there. We just started doing the community pop-ups again, little meetings, and good turnout, be 50, 60 people in each district that we had. But it's just hearing the feedback. Obviously, everybody's going to complain about parking, but that's what I was stressing to them is you show the engagement, we get voter turnout, we can go to Trent, ask for some funding, buy some properties to put these parking garages up. The neighboring towns around us have had the success with that because of, the connections and want to say the relationships that they have within the state. And that's something that we got to build with our assembly and our senator, down the road to be able to ask for these funds, but showing that we're out there working and we get the, the voice of the people to tell us what they need.
It always seems to revolve, especially with these municipal races. It's always like those dirty P words, right? Property taxes, parking, public safety, and at the end of the day, though, Mayor, realistically, even in a town like Guttenberg, again, Hudson County is the most densely populated county, not just in New Jersey, but in the country. The stats prove that. I mean, realistically, it's not an indictment of you, but I think in general, when we're talking about elected officials and municipalities, you just can't wave a magic wand, especially when it comes to parking. Listen, after the pandemic, staying in New York City wasn't feasible for a lot of people. It wasn't affordable. People moved to Brooklyn. Well, that wasn't affordable. People moved to downtown Jersey City. That's become unaffordable. So people are moving up north a little bit into Weehawken, Union City, West New York, ultimately Guttenberg. But when you think about waving a magic wand, I don't think it's that easy as people think it is, especially, let's start with parking, for example.
You're asking me, I was just saying, parking for us, we're landlocked, so we're very limited, but to acquire properties would be the only way we could actually get things done. You have, investors, contractors buying properties and putting these mid-rises up. We just don't have the funds to be able to acquire those properties that we could actually purchase them, rip them down, and then wait for funding from the state or federal if we can at that point to turn around and build these mid-rise parking lots. So, talking to people, getting a better, we had not an antiquated parking system, but we're now LPR readers and stuff like that was better enforcement. It's been better, but if you think about it, there's 543 courts in New Jersey, I believe. We're the 36th busiest in the state of New Jersey. So our people are working to try and obviously keep the quality of life up and try to make things, as best as they can be what we're working with. Our police department last year responded to 26,000 calls. 26,000. 330 arrests and only 30 were residents. So, I mean, the work is being put in. I mean, North Hudson Regional, you see them. We have the quickest response times with, 2 minutes out. We've had, not that I have my differences with them, but working with the board now and being more involved with it and communication, which is the key that makes everything work. It's been a talk in the right direction. And obviously they are the best fire department. I'll say it's second to none in this state. And we got to do what we got to do to get them their next contract, which is another 25 years.
Mayor, I mean, my God, 26,000 calls for, what's going on in Guttenberg, bro? I mean, my goodness, it's a hotbed of something. What's going on?
It is crazy. It's not a lot of cats in the trees either. I can tell you that. But I mean, like I said, only 300 something arrests, and I think 10% were residents. So.
Now, you mentioned, obviously, which I think helps segue, obviously, when you mention about municipal court, certainly every municipality wants to hire more police officers. We want public safety. I think residents, for the exorbitant rents that they're paying, sometimes they want to be, they want to be able to, walk at night. They want to walk to the local bodega. They want to be able to walk to, as they say, down to the waterfront, right? So at the end of the day, when we think about public safety, what do you think has been the most productive manner that Guttenberg's gone about when it, as it pertains to hiring more police, if even if that's feasible?
There was a lot of feedback on that, but I think I heard you said hire more police. I think we're right where we need to be in a sweet spot. I mean, we had our overtime probably 2 years ago was 475,000. We got it
Wow.
down to 125. We just had our first chief in since 1999, so it's a young staff right now. I got to say, a young department, but they're working together and accomplishing things. Obviously every department has their headaches a little here and there, but as a whole, in the most densely populated city in the United States, I think they do a good job, if not great job. And with the diversity we have here, I mean, it matches our police force. So I think we're right where we need to be. If we keep getting more and more with this redevelopment, then it might be something you have to touch down the road. But 26,000 is a lot of calls, like you said. I can imagine what these bigger towns go through.
No, certainly. And you mentioned, obviously, when it comes to calls for service, obviously looking at down the road about as it pertains to hiring more police, a contract, and maybe, again, for our residents and viewers that tune in tonight, obviously, New Jersey is a very unique state when it comes to public services. Obviously, a lot of municipalities have their own police department. That's not the case in Hudson County. Obviously, a lot of municipalities share what's called the North Hudson Fire and Regional Rescue. So obviously, municipalities are sharing fire services. How complicated is that for you as a mayor when you have to sort of balance that with the other mayors, again, in a county where, you look at fire departments, Hoboken has its own fire department, Jersey City, Bayonne, for example. But, Northern Hudson County is very unique in that it's sharing such a vital institution like fire and rescue. So take us through, what are the conversations like that about?
Well, pertaining to the fire department, I actually had the opportunity to sit down and talk with a couple of the mayors over the last couple of weeks, and just understanding, I don't think anybody wants a fire department to go away as good as they are, response times and everything. They sacrifice their lives every day, and we owe it to them to sit down and talk to them and try to work these details out that it's going to work for every municipality fairly, with obviously the funding formula, which way the contract's written and stuff like that. Shared services. I mean, we've had a great team with North Bergen, with our EMS, whether it's our MUA, our salt replenishment for winters. But that's keeps costs down, and the more you could do that, it saves our taxpayers money. And our high school kids go there right now. It's been a work, and I believe I want to say since the late 70s. I think Guttenberg's been going there. So there's a lot of working parts, but you're always looking to see which is best for your community, and you got to do what's right for the community. You're not going to sacrifice safety or quality over money, and it's a thin line, but you got to try to look and see which is the best for your community.
During your tenure as mayor, obviously, I think every municipality goes through changes when it comes to education, certainly when it comes to curriculum and everything else. What can you tell us about the Guttenberg school system that maybe our viewers aren't familiar with?
Well, we have the 1K through 8 NL Klein School that's been there since I want to say, '03 when the school was built. But, today's day in reality, what is what drives property taxes? And everybody says it's, the school systems. There's 600 and something superintendents, and there's only 580 mayors. So the scary part for us is there's been talk down in Trenton, K through 8's being dissolved into larger school districts, neighboring ones, which makes the most sense. But obviously nobody wants to lose their own control over their own school. But I don't think it's something that's going to go away. I think most of these candidates for governor have addressed it. I know Senator Gopal, he had a bill up. Also Senator Sweeney had one a couple of years back. So it's a scary reality, but hopefully there's a way we can make things work. State funding, it's a weird formula, as we all know. People go up and down and don't know what the reasons are. But it's going to be a work going forward. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be consolidation is what's going to really drive what if we want to see any savings in the state.
Mayor, obviously, Northern Hudson County is its own sort of bubble, as they say politically, and obviously for quite some time, mayors have try to work together. That hasn't been the case in Hudson County for almost 20 years. And obviously some mayors are still at each other's throats. It's become very tribal. I know you have pretty much tried to stay out of it when it comes to your municipality. Obviously, you run a very tight-knit ship. You run Guttenberg very, very well. Again, your race isn't until November. You're running unopposed right now in June. But, it's not just the only election on the ballot coming up on June 10th, right? In Guttenberg, when we look at the ballot on June the 10th, obviously we have a gubernatorial race. Phil Murphy is term limited, so both the Republican and Democrat parties have their primaries. They're going to select candidates to see who goes against each other on November the 4th. But there's also state assembly races, and without a county line anymore, due to what happened last year, where at the time U.S. Representative Andy Kim pretty much fought the system in New Jersey, where it was the only state in the country that still had a county line. That's been done away with. Now there's tickets. There's not even so much the county endorsement, as they say, from a county county political party, but that's caused quite a stir in Hudson County, especially since the 32nd legislative district, the 33rd legislative district, and the 31st are all in Hudson County. But Guttenberg is in the 33rd legislative district, and that is encompassed by State Senator and Mayor Brian Stack. Obviously, we have an incumbent running in Gabriel Rodriguez, and we have a new assembly candidate, local businessman Larry Weinstein. And that candidacy has caused a lot of uproar, man, in the township of Guttenberg, nearby in North Bergen. What can you tell us about the shitstorm that it's caused? Because that's probably the best word I can think of.
It's nothing short of what Hudson County politics has been over the last 40 years. But to say the least, I think all the candidates, they have their qualities, and I think anybody who gets in is going to be, a great assemblyman. I'm sorry, and we're going to work with whoever's in there. Senator Stack has now become our senator, and he's been working with us tremendously in the beginning, and rightfully so. Give thanks to Senator Sacco, because he was not only our neighboring mayor and our shared services and everything that we had broken together that I walked into that was in place already. But, we want to work with who's going to be there. Obviously, we haven't made any endorsements on the assembly side of it. We chose not to get into it just because of the uniqueness to it. But to me, politics is obviously, I learned a nasty game. We lost something in this world where we can't respect differences between people. It's if we don't agree, we're enemies and we have to attack. And it's very unfortunate, because all it does is set us back. And Hudson County should be a thriving political county. And unfortunately, it's not there yet. And, the new chairman and county executive Craig guy has a big, after we get through this June 10th, it's going to be picking pieces up and see, not just for the 33rd, but for all three districts.
Right.
And it's not going to be easy. And, I don't envy his position at this point. But, we all got to bring it together, and we got to work together to try to bring this county back. I'm with Philip. I gave him my word way back in Sheriff Shalary. And, I think, again, we want the best person who's going to be in there for the state to move us forward. And, the main thing is working together. After this primary, work together, see where it goes.
Listen, well said there. Mayor, I've known you for a while. Going back to the days when you were working for then Assemblywoman Angelica Jimenez. And, shout out to her. She was a good public servant, certainly in her time in the Assembly. So I've known you for quite some time. It kind of begs the question, man. Sometimes not everyone's bred for this business. Politics is fickle and get very tribal and get nasty, as you just alluded to, and as we're living right now in modern times. So, at what age was that epiphany where you said to yourself, yeah, I want to get involved in politics. I want to do this for a living, if not pursue elected office?
When I moved back up here, I was living in Perth Amboy, and I moved back up to Guttenberg once, I think it was probably about 12 years ago, and became a committee man. Mayor Dreschow was here, got on as a committee man, and then one of the council people was moving to Florida. So opportunity open. I gave it a shot to see where it would go. And did I ever expect that I would be where I am? No. And probably a lot of people could say that. But one thing I did know was I was so intimidated by the position. All I made sure that I would work hard, be, when it's on the ground, knocking on doors, getting, like they said, the pulse. If it's learning how budgets work, how legislation moved. When I started working for the Assemblywoman, it was from the ground up. I didn't walk into it with a book of knowledge, but sometimes it's better to learn that way rather than just reading the book. You got to throw yourself in the trenches to understand what's going on. But after Angelica, I also worked for Speaker Prieto, which was a great experience, and I learned so much from that gentleman that I carry with me today, as not only as want to say an elected official, politician, but as a person, as a man. But a lot of learning since I've been 38. So 12 years in here now. I'm going to be 50 years. So it's been a steady but slow progression, I like to say, but confidence builder at the same time.
No, definitely. And listen, you've been a great public official, no doubt about that. And I'm not trying to kiss anyone's ass on the air, but I mean, again,
No.
I can call balls and strikes fairly. And you put in the work. You've rolled up your sleeves. You put in the work. No question. Before I let you go, I know you have a meeting coming up. You're a fellow member of Cowboy Nation. It's 100 days to go until the start of the NFL season. Cowboys, as usual, have a good draft. They don't spend a lot on free agency. I have my questions about Dakota Prescott, who I'm not a big fan of. But I think the Cowboys, open up at the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Tough place to play. I go to that game every year. I get everyone's in love with the Eagles, but if there's a time to pick off the Super Bowl champions, it's on opening night. I don't think the Cowboys are as big underdogs as people think. How do you see the season coming up, Mayor?
I could agree with you. You want to catch somebody in those early weeks when they're still sleeping, and they got to get the momentum. So, do I think that it's a good spot to be in? Yeah, I'd rather play them in week 1 than 8 or 14. And again, it's like you said, what's the big question mark? Prescott, and do we have a running game? I seen
Yeah,
Javante, what's his name? Walker looks
yeah,
a little healthy, right?
yeah,
But defense has to come together. 2 years ago, we had a great defense. Last year was in shambles.
yeah.
So, but Pickens, is he going to be the answer? I hope so. I hope he's not too much of an emotional head case. But if he could complement CD, that would be a nice pick, and let's see where it takes it. I mean,
And,
we
and, and
can't
let's
say.
be honest. And let's be honest. Jake Ferguson's growing into one of the top elite tight ends in
Yep.
the NFL. And if the defense is a little healthy, obviously led by Micah Parsons, we'll see. Again, I hate that Jerry and Stevie don't spend money in the offseason, free agency sometimes, but they've been drafting well forever. So you saw their picks. I think I
That
think
feels good, sir.
they can
Feels
be
good, sir.
10-7. I don't think it's unrealistic. We'll see. Health is a big question mark. And listen, I think this is make or break for Dakota. I think next year he can get cut. We can eat a little bit of the cap space. So I think it's a make or break year for Dakota. He's either got to show us what he has or we need to move on. By the way, just in case everyone's forgetting, Archie Manning is going to be available next year. It'd be something if Archie Manning becomes a Dallas Cowboy in the draft. So we'll see for
Agree.
sure. But Mayor, I know you have to go, but before I do, I want to thank you for your time. You're always
Thank you.
great to talk to. I appreciate your transparency. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
Over under wins for the boys. What are we thinking?
I think 10. I think 10-7. I think is realistic for them.
Wow. All right. I was gonna say 8 or 9. So all right.
All right.
Fingers crossed. We're good.
Yeah,
We're good.
definitely. But
Start for week 1.
again, you're a great public servant. You've rolled up your
Thanks, man.
sleeves. You've cut your teeth in the business. I appreciate your transparency. You want to come on and talk about these issues about your great township. I'll give you the last word here tonight on Real Talk.
Again, thank you for having me. But as a North Hudson elected official, we got to start coming together and work together. And hopefully, after this, this water ends on June 11th, we could start picking the pieces up and working together.
Well said there. Folks, he is the mayor of the great township of Guttenberg in Northern Hudson County. Again, on Facebook, make sure you follow Team Guttenberg. Also follow him on Instagram, on Facebook as well, Mayor Wayne Zitt Jr. Am I missing anything, Mayor, in terms of
That's it, babe. That's it. Thank you, brother.
All right, brother. Thank you again. Have a good one.
Have a good night.
Take care. Folks, good stuff there with the mayor. Again, right at the buzzer there, as they say. He's got a meeting coming up at 6:30. Appreciate the mayor's time here tonight on Real Talk, folks. And if you just joined us live, like, comment, share tonight's episode. Again, it takes 5 seconds. Trust me, I've done this. Real quick, like, comment, share on any of your social media platforms here on the program. And we appreciate you making this a part of your Tuesday night edition here, viewing of Real Talk. Again, obviously, hope you got to enjoy Memorial Day weekend, of course, and understanding the importance of what Memorial Day really, really means. It's not just a long weekend, folks. It's about honoring the fallen, and hopefully you all got to do that at some point this past weekend. As a special programming note, Real Talk resumes in its regularly scheduled time next Monday night at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So you do want to put that on your calendars, of course. And folks, I can't say enough, really. Traffic continues to be very strong and organic here on the program every single week. And for going for years now. And again, without all of you at home, it wouldn't be possible. So to all my friends and colleagues and frenemies and all the haters out there, that tune in. Again, you can't help yourselves. So I appreciate you giving me traffic and clicks every single week here on the Jersey First Television Network. Folks, really, again, if you just joined us now, it's 6:30 exactly here on the East Coast. One of the more brief interviews I've done on Real Talk. Again, we appreciate the mayor, obviously, under some time constraints, coming on the program and having a great conversation about what's going on in the township of Guttenberg. But folks, it's that point of the show where we all know why you love tuning in. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time, let's be honest, for final thoughts. And folks, during this election cycle, I have to say, and let me just get my notes here because I got a lot to talk about here tonight during final thoughts. And when we examine our political climate here in Hudson County, it's easy to sort of fall into sort of echo chambers and bubbles, but no one exemplifies how really, if there's a textbook definition about how to be disconnected from reality and just to sort of live in your own little echo chamber and bubble, well, folks, no one really exemplifies that better than the Lollipop Guild here in Hudson County. And again, in no particular order, but I'll address each of them individually. Yes, it's the Lollipop Guild. Yes, as you see there, Joe Blaitler, Ernie Rivera-Batiz, John Bender, who, can someone tell John Bender it's not 1971, that maybe you want to update that profile picture? Obviously, I know you want to show off your teeth there, since you can't do that right now, obviously. From what people told me in Newark Municipal Court, no teeth to speak of. But in any event, or want to be, want to be journalists that, let's be honest, are propagandists and agitators and instigators like Leonard Filipowski, or illiterates like Jose Garrido Jr., right? But what makes this sort of interesting dissection of these idiots most interesting this week is what we came to learn after what's called ELEC reports, right? Now, as you can see there, ELEC reports, right? These are the ELEC reports from the campaign of Tony Hector and Frank Alonso, right? Oh, by the way, it's 6:30. Somebody might want to wake up Frank Alonso. He's probably asleep as we speak right now. Okay. But it's interesting of Tony Hector giving $10,000 to, what do we see there? Oh, Truth Investigation out of a P.O. box out of Stamford, Connecticut. As we all come to learn, that seems to be the home residence or home state of Leonard Filipowski. I'm not going to refer to him by his stupid gimmick name because it's not worth giving oxygen to. But for a guy that talks about, trying to find corruption and weeding out dishonesty, you think it would have occurred to Leonard at some point? Maybe he'd want to disclose that he received $10,000 from a political campaign? Can someone explain that to me? Because Leonard talks a good game about, I'm transparent. I'm here to make sure that everyone's transparent. No, Leonard, as we've come to learn, you're full of shit. But what else is new? Right? But what's interesting about this ELEC report, and again, folks, this is public information. This isn't defamatory or slander. This is public information. How interesting of Tony Hector and Frank Alonso to write a check for social media advertising to Leonard Filipowski. Whether it's his social media site or, let's be honest, that bullshit news site that, anybody can buy a domain name and call it whatever you want, but it's not a news site. More on that later. But of course, once this ELEC report dropped over the weekend, yes, it's easy to forget about because it is a holiday weekend. But folks, for those of us that are political junkies and insiders, we're never sleeping on politics. We're always in the know. We're always trying to find out information whenever possible. And we learned this over the weekend after a recent ELEC report. Right? And that's what's interesting about people like, for example, Jose Garrido Jr. Whenever you watch his awful videos, and again, folks, I don't look at his page. I don't, it's only brought to my attention. But these are the typical local illiterates that enable a blatantly dishonest campaign like Tony Hector and Frank Alonso. And he's joined by the rest of the Lollipop Guild in Hudson County. Right? That spend every waking minute of the day criticizing a great public official like Brian Stack, who is not just only a mayor, but a state senator. The guy who has to work double duty to not just run one of the best run municipalities in the state of New Jersey, and that's Union City, but to go to Trenton on a regular basis and be a legislator. To try to keep our property taxes down in Hudson County. To try to keep our property taxes down in Union City, which he has. And he's done a much better job than a lot of other mayors. Not just in Hudson County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. But you would think that with that much of a work ethic, with that much dedication to the community, you would think that someone like, and by the way, folks, if you ever watch his videos, I mean, it's the most insufferable stuff to look at. I mean, it's like you feel bad laughing, right? It's sort of like when you see that kid in class that's kind of like, kind of slow and everything. You don't want to laugh at him, right? And you sort of keep your composure and make sure that you maintain some sort of decorum so you're not laughing at him. But for a grown man like, Jose Garrido Jr., it's kind of interesting when this is a guy who cries poverty all the time, but this Mark has money to buy replica boxing championship belts. Can someone explain this to me, please? How you can cry poverty, but somehow have money to, as they say, comer mierda with a hobby like this? Jose, if you're really impoverished and you're really kind of like struggling financially, is it a good decision to buy championship belts? I don't know. But again, folks, this is the typical sob story that you see from Jose Garrido Jr. Trust me, if the day ends with a Y, you're hearing a sob story about Jose Garrido, how bad his life is, and oh my God, how everything around him is so punitive, and oh my God, how the world's against him and everything else. Yes, Jose. I'm supposed to feel sorry for an illiterate like yourself who cries poverty, but somehow finds money to do this type of stupid shit. I mean, folks, please make it make sense. Please. But asking Jose Garrido Jr. to make sense is, that's asking a lot, right? That really is. But this is a guy who, front and center, every day possible, is out there looking to take jabs at hardworking men and women like Brian Stack, his staff at City Hall. Folks, if you want to know what hardworking men and women look like, take a walk to 3715 Palisade Avenue at the mayor's office. Every single man and woman there working hard every day, answering the concerns of residents in Union City. Or in his capacity as a state senator, what Brian Stack does for the 33rd Legislative District. Going to Trenton and bringing back dollars for programs, for schools. By the way, any idea how West New York is going to be building a new middle school? Folks, you can thank Brian Stack for that. Working with the municipality of West New York, going to Trenton and getting some very much needed dollars to help build that very much needed middle school in the town of West New York. Okay. And making sure that construction projects are completed. That the streets are brightly lit, that the streets are paved, like major roads, like, I don't know, for example, Burger Line Avenue. That's what a hardworking mayor does. But you wouldn't know that from watching Jose Garrido. Now, I'm not really great at impressions, but I've gotten better at them over time. And pretty much, folks, what you see on social media from malcontents like this clown is just, I'll give you the best example here. This is a typical Jose Garrido video when you watch them. And people, again, bring it to my attention. I have to laugh and I feel bad laughing because it's sort of like you're laughing at like that fat kid in class that is slow, but you don't want to laugh at him. But that's who Jose Garrido is. Right? When he sits there, good afternoon, Union City. My name is Jose Garrido. As if we don't know who you are, mother effer. Yes, you're the guy with a horribly groomed beard. Okay? With championship belts up your ass. Really, we know who you are. Okay? You don't have to identify yourself. Okay? Good afternoon, Union City. My name is Jose Garrido Jr., and I'm here to talk about whatever pisses me off of the day. How I'm struggling financially, but yet I have money to buy championship belts. Yes, I want you to feel sorry for me. Boo hoo hoo. That's exactly the best way to summarize Jose Garrido videos. They get like 30 views? Really? I'm supposed to be impressed with that, Jose? Come on. And I get it that, you get a little fickle because maybe people make fun of you or I'm taking shots at you. Jose, this is the problem. You talk a good game about dishing it out, but you don't like to take it because when you put yourself out there as an illiterate that can't write and spell, let's be honest, folks, look at his social media. You would think that with apps available on your smartphone, like Grammarly, Google Translate, or whatever, that this illiterate would find a way to be able to formulate coherent, grammatically correct sentences and paragraphs. Folks, if you ever, listen, not that I ever wish a headache on you, but if you want to get a headache willingly, just read his social media. It's an abomination of the English language. But these are the people supporting Tony Hector and Frank Alonso. These are the people that will tell you that, oh, you're a man of the people. Oh, Jose, what you are is a laughingstock in Hudson County, especially in Union City, where no one takes you seriously. But somehow, we're supposed to believe that you're a good judge of character when it comes to political candidates, right? More on that later. I'll get back to Jose in a minute because, you know, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit, but it's easy. Like, I need a challenge. Because making, you know, ridiculing Jose Garrido, like, there's not much effort required there because he does it to himself. He gives you the material by just being Jose Garrido. But speaking of the people that endorse bad candidates, folks, and again, a special shout out to John Hines, the editor-in-chief of the Hudson County View, which, by the way, you can check out by going to hudsoncountyview.com. Fellow Rutgers alumnus and a member of the Pinnacle, for his reporting on this story. And, of course, as I mentioned about this ELEC report, yeah, this race is getting very explosive in the 33rd Legislative District. And let me just give you a perspective here. Okay. Let me just give you a perspective. Let me just look at my notes here. I'll read you some interesting dynamics about this article. Okay. Now, folks, what's interesting here, and I'll sort of just read you some interesting. Now, again, via John Hines, while the June 10th Assembly primary in the 33rd Legislative District never had a friendly tone, the discourse has taken an explosive turn in light of the underdogs doing a $10,000 ad buy with, I'm not going to call him by his stupid gimmick name, with Leonard Filipowski. He's been accused by State Senator Stack and Union City Mayor Brian Stack of being an attack dog for North Bergen Mayor Nick Sacco, which both he and Filipowski have denied repeatedly. Okay. However, Stacco is backing Larry Weinstein and Assemblyman Gabriel Rodriguez against Tony Hector and Frank Alonso, who have Nick Sacco's support, took notice that the opposition paid, quote, Truth Investigations $10,000 for a social media ad on May the 6th, according to Campaign Finance. Quote, the recent ELEC, the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission, filing proves what we've known all along, that the Sacco political machine has been paying my political enemies for years to be disruptive, launching personal attacks against my administration and family in a statement prepared by State Senator and Mayor Brian Stack. He also wanted to say, quote, the Sacco political machine has always been about helping themselves and hurting people, but we will not be deterred. In fact, the recent confirmation by ELEC only motivates me to work harder with the aim of expelling Sacco and his cronies from government. Filipowski said that they paid to take out an advertisement on his Facebook page, largely deferring comment to the Hector and Alonso campaign, who spoke to their campaign chair, Joe Blaitler, a retired Union City deputy police chief, and malcontent. Those are my words, not John's. He responded in kind, pointing out that they had an ad approved with the New Jersey Globe in April, but it never ended up being used. As a result, their check was never cashed. We knew this would get under Brian's skin. That's why we did it. Leonard has more credibility than the New Jersey Globe. Okay, that's asinine because, as we all know, folks, the go-to news site on a statewide basis in New Jersey is the New Jersey Globe. And by the way, shout out to David Wildstein, big fan of this show. He's been a fan and obviously a guest on this show regularly. And folks, when it comes to the pinnacle of statewide media, folks, it's New Jersey Globe. It's not clown shows like Insider NJ Spotlight News, NorthJersey.com, Political New Jersey. Okay. It's not these establishment media institutions. Folks, when it comes to looking at the news and getting scoops and exclusives and things that are actually factually accurate, you rely on the New Jersey Globe. Let's continue. Okay. Leonard has no connection to Kevin O'Toole, who is a close ally to Brian Stack, and Donald Scarinci, who's closely aligned with convicted felon agent Bob Menendez. Leonard's not running in those circles. Okay. Blaitler also said that the Rodriguez-Weinstein team has spent $14,000 on ads with the New Jersey Globe to date, as well as that with the Hudson County Democrat Organization, along with Chair Greg Guy, also the county executive who met with him at a Randolph diner last year to see if he knew who Filipowski was. New Jersey editor David Wildstein declined to get into the North Hudson melee, simply saying, quote, people see ghosts in politics, especially this close to Election Day. Obviously, there, Hector and Alonzo are running on Jersey City Mayor Stephen Phillips' Democrats for Change gubernatorial ticket in an effort to upset the HDDO-backed candidates. Editors note, both assembly slates in the 33rd Legislative District have indeed taken out advertisements with the Hudson County View. Now, again, folks, what's interesting is that when these assembly candidates are running ads with legitimate news sites like the Jersey City Times, the Hudson County View, HUD-Post, Tap Into New Jersey, Hudson County TV. Okay, these are news sites. These are sites that are running news, not opinions. These are news sites that, if you're going, for example, if they're going to cite a poll in this upcoming primary, they're not just pulling numbers out of their ass somewhere or out of the sky, like Leonard does. Like there's something called, again, and maybe Leonard didn't take a stats class in undergrad or graduate school like I did. But again, when you're talking about polling, you have to look at some basic dynamics like a sample size. What are some of the polling questions? Who are the demographics being polled? Again, this is all information you should make readily available, not just, this percentage here, this percentage here. Folks, that's what makes his news site. Well, it's not even a news site, folks. It's a propaganda site. That's what makes it a joke. That's why no one takes Leonard Filipowski seriously. Okay? Not the National Academy of Music, Arts, and Sciences, as HUD-Post so eloquently pointed out. But what we're seeing now. One thing, again, folks, one thing is for assembly candidates to run ads with news sites. I don't have a bone to pick with that. But when you're giving $10,000 to a propagandist and a professional agitator like Leonard Filipowski, it kind of makes you wonder what the priorities are of the Tony Hector campaign. And again, because Nicholas Sacco has endorsed Tony Hector and Frank Alonso, folks, put the pieces together. Okay? This is not AP calculus. This is not AP trigonometry. It's not hard to figure out. Okay? And when the Township of North Bergen wants to deny any wrongdoing or any, involvement in this race, folks, when you're giving $10,000 to Leonard Filipowski, and you would think, number one, he would buy a new suit. He wears the same god-awful suit to every single publicity stunt that he engages in. Okay? Now, full disclosure, has this podcast taken in advertising dollars? Sure. I think any person doing journalism does take in those ad buys. There's no question. No one's giving me $10,000. I wish they were. But folks, it says a lot about Leonard Filipowski. And you would think that by receiving this $10,000 check, and I'm assuming he cashed it, that Leonard would be transparent about it. Right? But again, Leonard's transparent when it suits him. To say nothing of the fact that Tony Hector and Frank Alonso are arguably running the worst campaign I've ever seen. So much so that they're running infantile ads and childish tactics. I mean, who thinks that taking a picture of a state senator when he's filming an ad with a raincoat, because I don't know, I mean, are we supposed to expect people just to get drenched in the rain and possibly get sick? No. But to use derogatory language, and I'm not going to repeat it on this program because I'm above that on this show. Okay. But do you think, one thing is Leonard Filipowski. I expect childish antics and name calling and taunts. I expect that from children like Leonard Filipowski and overgrown children like Joe Bladler and Ernie Rivera Batiste, another illiterate that can't spell or write correctly. Let's be fair. I mean, again, the only A's this dimwit ever saw in his report card growing up were in his name. They didn't show up anywhere else. Is anyone surprised that Ernie never passed a promotional test? Really? You're kidding. One of the most illiterate people I've ever seen that ever occupied a position in law enforcement couldn't pass a promotional test? Of course not. When you're illiterate, it's hard to take standardized tests. Or John Bender. John Bender, maybe that day in Newark Municipal Court, maybe he fried his teeth. But John, it's interesting when you take shots at people. Wait a minute, aren't you the director of security for the North Bergen Board of Education? So you should be on one of the campuses, right? You should either be at the Board of Education on Kennedy Boulevard in North Bergen or one of the surrounding schools. What are you doing on a Friday morning in Newark Municipal Court when Leonard Filipowski is there to address charges against him? As you're sitting there, like that's John Bender. I get it. I understand why John Bender has to have that old profile picture there. I mean, again, that's when he had teeth. Doesn't look like he had teeth there in Newark Municipal Court. But what is the Newark, again, Board of Education Security Director doing? And I'm sure he's not earning minimum wage. Aren't you supposed to be doing your job instead of being in Newark? Like, why is there a need to go show support or be some sort of, I don't know, rally or pom-pom section for Leonard Filipowski? Shouldn't you be in North Bergen doing your job, John? Kind of makes you wonder how full of shit people like John Bender are, Joe Blaitler, Ernie Rivera-Batiz, Leonard Filipowski, and of course, Jose Garrido. And take your pick, folks. You have others like John Hughes, okay? Who, by the way, if you ever see a liquor cabinet, make sure it's locked because you don't want John Hughes anywhere near that. Okay? But these are the people we're supposed to take seriously in this election cycle. And again, folks, it's as clear as day. What's Tony Hector and Frank Alonso doing giving $10,000 to Leonard Filipowski? Because you're assuming that, and I think it's a logical conclusion to make, that because this is a ticket backed by Nicholas Sacco, Nick Sacco would know what Tony Hector and Frank Alonso were doing. So wouldn't he know that $10,000 is going to Leonard Filipowski? Kind of makes you wonder, right? I mean, memo to Tony Hector. Maybe you should, instead of giving Leonard Filipowski $10,000, maybe you should take $10,000 and maybe, I don't know, upgrade one of your shitty buildings. Because God knows there's plenty of shitty buildings that you own in Hudson County that need an upgrade. Okay? Do you need me to point them out? Do you want me to go on Google Maps next week on the show and kind of give you a better perspective of where they're at? I mean, I can do that. Tony, I mean, if you got $10,000 to just, throw away, why don't you give me $10,000? I could use a new PlayStation. I'm going on vacation this summer. I could use some F-around money when I go on vacation. If you have money to just throw around like that, I mean, throw it my way, my man. What's up? But if you're going to throw money around, at least throw it around to credible people. When you think about credible people, we don't think about Leonard Filipowski. Really? Is this what this assembly race has come down to? Right? That Tony Hector and Frank Alonso feel that, these are the people I want to align myself with. All right? And folks, and let's be honest. Okay? Let's be honest about what these people represent. Okay? Let's be very honest about what these clowns are a symbol of. Okay? They're a symbol of childish tactics, infantile behavior, and they talk a good game. They love to make fun and take shots at people, but when you do it to them, oh, boo-hoo, oh my God. I can imagine Leonard Filipowski or John Bender, as he's watching the show, and he has to remember to put his teeth in. Or Jose Garrido Jr. or, Ernie Rivera-Batiz, again, they love taking shots at people. Hey, listen, it's social media. I get it. Social media is giving people a lot of courage these days to say things on social media. When we both know that if you're in front of them, you wouldn't say anything. Okay? When John Bender takes shots at people, we both know John Bender, at the tender age of 89, wouldn't dare say anything to anybody in public. Number one, he's probably afraid his teeth will fall out. But we all know he is the epitome of keyboard courage, as is Ernie Rivera-Batiz. All 5'2" of them. They talk like a game on social media, but when you go after them, I can almost foresee them at home. Oh my God, my pussy hurts because Fernando made fun of me or other people made fun of me. Oh, my pussy hurts. That's what they sound like, folks. Trust me when I tell you That's what they sell it. Okay. And I can't wait for June the 10th. I'll tell you right now. I cannot wait because, Joe Blather's trying to establish himself as this, viable political operative. He's running campaigns and he's going to will people to victory. Yeah, folks. On election night, well, let's be honest. Taking L's, well, on election night, yeah, you can't smell Blatler without an L. And Joe's going to find that out on June 10th, real quick. So whether it's running, fictitious Facebook pages, taking shots at people, and by the way, Joe, and let me just put this on the record here. The reason I don't entertain your nonsense is, number one, I'm busy on Fridays. I'm actually doing something. I'm not sitting on my ass collecting a pension like you did, or you are. Okay? And by the way, again, just to give you some clarity, the reason his little infantile challenge goes unanswered is because, folks, there's no winning that. Okay? Hey, listen, kudos to you, Joe. At the age of 80-something, whatever you are, and you're staying in shape, you're doing jiu-jitsu. Great, cool. You should want to stay healthy. God bless you. May you live a long, prosperous life. God knows you're milking it with your pension, sure. Okay? Entertaining anything with you doesn't make sense. Because if I go there and embarrass you, which is most likely the case, oh, well, then, let's vilify Fernando Uribe some more because I'm picking on a senior citizen. And if I go there, let's be very honest, you don't seem like the classiest person in the world. Who's to say you don't take a shot at me? Because you are a cheap shot artist, let's be fair. And then that gets ugly, and then nobody wins that either. So what you want is the attention. I'm not going to give it to you. Because again, what I've been told about children is if you ignore them when they're having tantrums, soon enough, eventually, they stop bitching and moaning. Seems like Joe Blather isn't the case, is he's still bitching and moaning. I have ex-girlfriends that don't bitch and moan as much as you, Joe. But again, what do I expect out of an 80-something-year-old man-child? But folks, again, these are the people enabling horrible candidates like Tony Hector and Frank Alonso. Okay? Folks, you have options on June the 10th. Okay? You have options like Gabriel Rodriguez and Larry Weinstein for the state assembly. You have options like Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis for sheriff, who hopefully, if he gets elected, can clean up some of the bullshit bureaucracy that we've seen with the Hudson County Sheriff's Department. Don't believe me? Take a look. Are there overtime records that are public, that's made available to the public? Really? Okay. And let's be very honest. There's plenty of things that disqualify Stephen Fulop from being the next governor. But the one thing that stands right from the get-go for me is the fact of saying, hey, I want to reappoint Matt Placken as my Attorney General. Folks, that should scare the shit out of you with how atrocious an Attorney General Matt Placken has been. Whether it's on the Second Amendment, whether it's on parental rights, whether it's on coddling mentally unwell people, trans people. When it comes to curriculum in our public schools, corrupting our kids, really? This is the Attorney General you want to have for another 4 years? I don't want him for another 4 hours or 4 minutes. So if you need a criteria to disqualify Stephen Fulop, folks, it's 2 words, Matt Placken. So you have choices on June the 10th. But whatever ticket Nick Sacco's backing, that's not the ticket to pick. It just isn't. Especially, not just because of the candidates, but when you have imbeciles like these backing you. Folks, again, take your pick. If it's not one thing or the other, it's sob stories. Again, to you, Jose, you can't cry poverty when you're comiendo mierda, doing stupid things like this. Stop being a mark. Okay? If you're really impoverished and struggling for money, stop wasting it on bullshit like this. But I shouldn't have to tell you this. You're a grown-ass man. But again, when you're dealing with children, you have to talk to them like children. That's never an easy thing. Speaking of children, folks, yes, 2 weeks from tonight is also, of course, as I mentioned, it is primary day. And when we think about awful candidates for the assembly, yes, we talked about Tony Hector and Frank Alonso. Okay? How about we talk about Ravinder Bala, the current mayor of Hoboken? Okay? Now I'm going to put this up here in, full screen so you can get a sense of, how egregious this is. Okay? But you can see there for yourself. Okay, you can see there for yourself that, of course, of course, under Ravi Bala, there have been ethics concerns from the New Jersey State Supreme Court, as you can see there. When you talk about a lack of ethics, we talk about Ravi Bala. Okay, we talk about, let's be honest, a despicable guy who swears he's a progressive. Don't forget, he's a progressive. But what did he do when he had, when he had a Latina in the state assembly? Oh, what did he do? Oh, okay. What did he do? Yes, he replaced her with not a Latino, but his white chief of staff, John Allen. Oh, okay. Can someone explain this to me? How this is progressive? Can someone explain to me how this is, I don't know, suitable and appropriate? Can someone explain this to me? Because I have yet to understand the logic behind it. Really, please. If someone can, I would love to hear your rationalization. As you can see there. Okay. As you can see there, there's no shortage of things to sort of pinpoint about Ravi Bala. Okay. While on his watch, you saw Hoboken property taxes go up more than 16% since he's been in office since January of 2018. Okay. Because in Hoboken, let's be fair, it's all about pronouns and coddling mentally ill people, trans people, because that's what they are. Okay. Grown men playing dress up and make believe. Sorry. No amount of dress up or make believe by grown men is going to prevent them from getting that colonoscopy. As much as they want to be women, you still got to go for colonoscopy there. And no amount of make believe by grown women who want to chop off their hair and chop off their breasts and look like a tomboy and pretend that they're men. No, folks, this is mental illness on steroids. But this is the community that Ravi Bala gladly loves to coddle. Okay? So while people are getting assaulted in broad daylight in Church Square Park in Hoboken, Ravi Bala would rather repaint the crosswalks during Pride Month. That's who Ravi Bala is. Okay? Oh, while, there's a rat infestation in Hoboken, not necessarily the rodents, they're a public health issue for, seniors and children, but it's the amount of rats working at City Hall. While property taxes have gone up in Hoboken, guess what else also has gone up? Yeah, the amount of hirings at City Hall, where his staff has been bloated by more than 50%. And you think you would have heard an objection, right? From people that are supposedly about transparency, right? The clowns in the city council, like Joe Quintero, the charisma vacuum, Phil Cohen, Mr. Personality, Jim Doyle, or the prom queen, Emily Jabor. Yeah. You're all about transparency. Why don't you ever hold Ravi Bala accountable? Again, property taxes have gone up 16% in Hoboken. And while lifers in Hoboken have had to sort of scramble to decide, what are we going to do in Hoboken? Because I can't afford to stay there. Yeah, Ravi Bala doesn't care. He wants to be out there with Katie Brennan, another insufferable virtue signaler. Talk about, well, we have to resist Trump. Yes, because Donald Trump is the reason that Hoboken and their property taxes have gone up since 2018. Sure. Because Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala would rather virtue signal and be all about coddling illegals and mentally ill people, trans people, instead of worrying about everyday issues. Folks, Donald Trump hasn't been in Trenton since 2002 raising property taxes. Donald Trump isn't responsible for the gas tax going up in New Jersey. You can blame Governor Chris Christie for that. You can also blame one of the gubernatorial candidates, Steve Sweeney, who's the Senate president, that enabled that. Okay? Or Assembly Speaker at the time, Vincent Prieto, that enabled that. Or that the tolls on the turnpike and the parkway have gone up again. And as we enter the summer season, yes, a lot of us want to go down the shore, visit friends, go to wineries. Yeah, you'll be paying more when you go through the tolls. And as crude oil and the production of crude oil continues to go down in New Jersey and nationwide, yeah, we're paying 47 cents more per gallon because of the gas tax. And supposedly, the revenues from the gas tax are supposed to go into the Transportation Trust Fund. What exactly am I supposed to trust about this fund as it pertains to transportation? According to AAA, New Jersey has the third worst roads anywhere in the country. So what exactly are we doing with the gas tax? These are the things that New Jersey residents are concerned about, right? But no, Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan want to talk about, counting the illegals. They talk about due process for, human traffickers and wife beaters and illegals, like Guillermo Garcia, who's residing here illegally in Maryland and now thankfully is back in his home country of El Salvador. Must be nice to be back home. You think Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan cared about the, due process of, the due process rights of Kate Stanley? Or Laken Riley? Let me run a couple more names at you. Let me just run a couple more names here. Just bear with me here, folks, as I'm looking at my notes here. Let's look. Oh, well, here we go. Interesting. Some other interesting names: Kayla Hamilton, Ruby Garcia, Lisbeth Medina, Rachel Morin, Jocelyn Hungary, Jocelyn Tokiza, Melanie Waldecker, Molly Thibault. You want to know what they'll have in common? These young women that had a bright future ahead of them? Yeah, victimized by illegals and criminals. And when it comes to an issue like illegal immigration and preventing illegal immigration, it seems like woke clowns and social justice fools like Katie Brennan and Ravi Bala, when it comes to the 80-20 issue of everything, they'd rather be in the 20 of every issue because they can't help themselves. And that's who Ravi Bala is, folks. So you have choices 2 weeks from tonight. And early voting begins next weekend. Mail-in ballots are available. You can also vote on Election Day, coming up on June 10th. You have options in the 32nd Legislative District. You have a hardworking woman like Crystal Fonseca, fellow Yankee fan. And Crystal and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but she's a worker. Very much like her father, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. A worker, someone who cuts his teeth, someone who rolls up his sleeves and gets the business. That's what Crystal Fonseca has been, running in the state assembly in the LD 32 primary. You have choices like Crystal Fonseca. Okay? A woman whose life story is compelling, it's tragic, but also inspirational. That's someone you want to vote for on June 10th. Yeah, someone like Crystal Fonseca. Not fake progressives like Ravi. Again, folks, I'm going to put this in perspective. You can't call yourself a progressive, Ravi, when you have an assemblywoman like Annette Chaparro, who's a Latina, and you replace her just because you want to be an asshole, and replace her, of all people, with a white man who happens to be your chief of staff. Tell me how that's progressive, Ravi. Tell me how that is standing up for working class people. Tell me how that's representing black and brown people when you cut out a Latina right by the knees and show her the door. So your white chief of staff can have an assembly seat. Really? Is that progressive of Ravi Bala? No, it's not, folks. Folks, Ravi Bala is one of the fakest politicians to ever run for elected office. He's run Hoboken into the ground, and without a doubt, he's going to run the 32nd Legislative District into the ground. Again, you have choices 2 weeks from today. Crystal Fonseca is one of them. I strongly urge you to look at her record. I strongly urge you to look at her platform. She's a young woman. She's Latina. She's Hispanic with a cause. Hey, again, I don't have to agree with everything Crystal Fonseca believes in. I'll tell you what I do believe in is her work ethic. She's knocking on doors. She's talking to the community. She's just not running on money like Ravi Bala is. But of course, if you're Katie Brennan, why not ride his coattails since you can't raise a nickel for yourself? Folks, again, during this election cycle, it's amazing to me that in the most progressive district in the state, which is, again, the 32nd legislative district, and I get it, there are people there that, they blow a load on themselves about all the woke bullshit, and they care more about pronouns and identitarian politics and all the other social justice nonsense that, quite frankly, we're tired of. What we care about is, again, our garbage being picked up. Are our streets safe? Is money coming back from Trenton to help fund our schools? Are we hiring more police officers? Are we getting more things done at a county level? That's what matters. I would argue, not just in LD 32, but in all 40 legislative districts this election cycle. But for someone like Ravi Bala, it's easier to virtue signal, okay, than to talk about real everyday issues, kitchen table issues that matter. As rents are going up, as developers are having their way, okay? As Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan are more concerned with fighting ICE than, maybe fighting affordability or fighting a rise in property taxes or fighting a rise in possibly another gas tax or toll taxes. Folks, I don't know about you, but those are legislators I want, or that people in the 32nd legislative district should want too. I said it before and I'll say it again. These are serious times. We have serious problems and we need serious people to solve them. When I think of serious people, I never think of Ravi Bala. Folks, neither should you. And those are my final thoughts. Folks, and that's our show for this week. Yes, probably one of the shortest programs in this program's history, without a doubt. And again, we want to thank Guttenberg Mayor Wayne Zitt for his time tonight. Again, a lot to talk about during his election in the township of Guttenberg coming up. Obviously, his primary on June 10th, and certainly the general election coming up on November the 4th. Again, as I said at the beginning of the program, folks, yes, there's a lot of interesting mayoral races in Hudson County, certainly Jersey City and Hoboken, but you have other municipalities with interesting mayoral races, such as in Kearney and, of course, in Guttenberg. So you definitely will keep you tuned in and, of course, updated on everything going on during this election cycle. And, folks, and just a special programming note, again, I can't say it enough, but I want to thank you for always tuning in here on Real Talk. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, of course. Follow us on Instagram and X. And whether you get your podcast on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and take it with you anywhere at any time. And trust me, you'll never be disappointed with our great content here on the Jersey First Television Network. Whether you're walking your dog, going for a run, maybe getting some sun on the patio or the deck, whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you're on the beach looking for a good podcast to listen to. Folks, download Jersey First. Trust me, you'll never be disappointed. And I can't say enough what a privilege it is to be on the dream team of Garden State Media, folks. That's right. It's always Jersey First TV. Brand new episodes of the Nader Narrative premiere every Thursday, hosted by my outstanding tag team partner, the amazing Elizabeth Nader. And brand new episodes of Real Talk premiere every Monday night. Check your local listings, of course, for start times here every single week. Folks, always remember, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. Yes, folks, a special programming note, we'll return to our regularly scheduled time slot next Monday at 6 p.m. But I just want to say this because coming up really next Sunday, we'll be celebrating 5 years on the air. 5 years ago on June the 1st during 2020 when we were all home during a pandemic, and never mind what we've come to learn about the pandemic and who to blame and, quite frankly, some egregious policies that we were subjected to. More on that next week. But on June the 1st in 2020, when we were home, we didn't know what to expect. We saw loved ones and neighbors and classmates and colleagues dropping like flies, and we didn't know what to expect. People were home. We saw some very draconian COVID policies here in New Jersey. So a lot of us were binge watching TV shows on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Paramount Plus, Peacock. We listened to podcasts, watching YouTube. On June the 1st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Real Talk premiered. And a shout out to Jordan Kalmowitz and John Emmons IV with Eyes on NJ News for giving me that opportunity, for believing in my brand of independent media. And I didn't know what to expect. Shortly after experiencing loss in my family, folks, I was a mess. For those of you that knew me, you knew what I'm talking about. But I felt I owed it to her and everyone that I lost during the pandemic to keep fighting and to keep talking about the issues that matter to you. Not all the social justice nonsense, not all the woke bullshit that encompassed our political climate. No, folks. Hopefully and thankfully, we're past all that nonsense. But on June the 1st, you took a chance on this show and you believed in me. And since then, since joining Jersey First in January of 2022, folks, the show continues to succeed, to get organic traffic. Not the little Mickey Mouse traffic, little Mickey Mouse journalists having the little Mickey Mouse shows. Real traffic, folks, on this program. The only traffic these clowns know are, what's on the Jersey Turnpike or Route 78 or Route 22 or Route 35. Take your pick. It's the only traffic they know. But here on this program, it's always real traffic because it's real talk. I have all of you to thank for that. My family, my friends, my classmates, my frenemies, even the haters, even the illiterate ones that tune in every single week because you can't help yourselves. Without you, the success of Real Talk wouldn't be possible. And it's not about the awards, which is nice. Multiple awards. I mean, as you can see, I don't fit in this house with the amount of awards I keep winning. But it's not about the awards, folks. It's about being that voice for you, the voiceless. Because as I've said from the beginning, and I'll continue saying it today, as the establishment media, whether it's nationally or more so here in New Jersey, continue to lie to you every single day. Take your pick. David Cruz, NJ Spotlight News, and what he wants to be outraged about selectively. He's more worried about what's at the food court at Gateway Center than actually doing real news or working like real hours. Or Max Pizarro at Insider NJ and the rest of the clowns, John Van Vliet, Jay Lassiter, okay? Or Alan Steinberg with, the host of Dynamic Political Centrism with all 7 viewers of his podcast. It's god-awful. Folks, if anyone exemplifies a face made for radio, it's Alan Steinberg. Let's be honest. Or Trump derangement syndrome children like Charles Style with NorthJersey.com or Matt Freeman with Political New Jersey. Okay. Take your pick, folks. As the establishment media in New Jersey continues to lie to you and mislead you, you know who never will and never has? Fernando Uribe. I made that pledge to you, folks, 5 years ago this Sunday, June the 1st, to be that version of independent media that you can trust, that you can rely on, that's going to tell you the truth, even when it's not easy to hear. I'm proud to do that. And yes, sure, people have tried to cancel me. They're still trying to cancel me. Good luck with that. Hasn't worked, and it's not going to work. But that's why I fight for all of you. It's why I'm so passionate for all of you. It's why I take this so seriously. It's why I made this craft. And folks, it's not just a gimmick. I've become the generational talent in this business. You can deny it all you want, but the numbers don't lie. And neither do I. So while journalists have been out there for decades, who work maybe once a week if they're lucky, who barely leave their homes, folks, I'm working every single day. I'm working 52 weeks a year because that is what a real journalist does. Can't say the same for the establishment media in New Jersey because they're not doing that. We're not the same, and we never will be. I want to thank you all for supporting and believing in Real Talk right here. Not just when I started with Eyes on NJ News, but now with Jersey First TV. Again, I'm deeply humbled by your support. As you all know, I'm not the most humble guy around. Okay? I'm not here to look pretty, folks. Okay? It's not just about sitting here and looking pretty and handsome for all of you at home. No, it's not just about that, which isn't hard for me. But it's about doing the work. It's about getting down to business. It's about talking about the issues that matter to everyday New Jerseyans, the meat and potato issues, the issues that families talk about at the kitchen table or in their living rooms. Not social justice nonsense or woke bullshit. No, folks, I'm here to tell you about the issues that matter to you. That's why I work hard for you every single week. I love you all. Thank you for making Real Talk with Fernando Uribe a success as we approach year 5 here on StreamYard. Once again, folks, that's our show for this week. Once again, I want to thank Guttenberg Mayor Wayne Zitt for his time. It was very limited due to some meetings, but I appreciate dedicating some time tonight to talk about his election, obviously how the Township of Guttenberg continues to thrive in 2025. Always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's Real Talk right here with Jersey First TV. I am the generational talent in Garden State Media because, folks, my level of honesty now more than ever is truly necessary. And as the establishment media here in New Jersey continues to lie to you, guess what? I never will. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Enjoy the rest of the month of May. We'll see you next month during the month of June. And God, I can't stand the month of June. It's like the longest 30 days every year for me. You know, it's insufferable. All the bullshit I have to endure during June. You know, the heat, the humidity, the stickiness. I don't know, maybe hay fever still in the air. I don't know, mosquitoes and bites. Just, it's what makes June unbearable and insufferable. What do you think I was going to say? Try, folks, to meet Fernando Uribe. We'll see you next week here. Please party responsibly. Thank you for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.